A snake falls to earth. Hi guys, and welcome to a new episode of the channel, and today we will be talking about a Newberry winner and the winner of the Newberry honor this year. A snake falls to earth. So let's get started. I've heard of a lot of snakes falling to earth. I mean, you could count snakes that were flung by hurricanes or I guess possibly tornadoes. Flying into the air and falling like the other side of the world are actually technically flying snakes. I mean, that could make sense for this title, but this is a fantasy novel. So that's not what a flying snake really is. But what does it mean by a snake falls to earth? I mean, it doesn't look like live in space, does it? Unless space is actually a religious order that we just perceive as blackness. Well, let's talk about this. This book is classified as a fantasy novel. I'm not talking like Harry Potter fantasies. Wingardium Leviosa! No, not those. I'm more talking about Alice in Wonderland fantasies. I'm also talking about Beauty and Beast fantasies. I'm talking about mythology, the Greek gods, the Roman gods, that type of fantasy, where there's always an external power. Heck, there's even the Warriors books that I'll probably make a future series on this. Has even their own external gods. StarClan, the Dead Warriors, just to name a few. Eventually, the best friends became part of StarClan and became gods. Technically, everyone will be a god. Every cat will be a god in Warriors, but that doesn't really matter. And a snake falls to earth. This is something a bit more far complex. When the snake, or half snake, you could say, a spirit, which an animal spirit, which technically can turn into a human with at least a few animal features, and then into a full animal, is really to some humans the enemy, and to others just a saying to see. And if you ever saw one of those, then you are lucky. I guess you could say that. Here, I guess the main character got lucky. It's a cottonmouth, and it does get the aid of a human who is surprisingly friendly to these creatures. And her name? Nina. Or Nina. There's no like the little waving on the end, so it's technically Nina. This is in perspectives of two people, Nina and the cottonmouth called Oli. At least that's its more common name, but in the chapter titles it's more referred to as cottonmouth. All this happened to Nina when she was like 16 years old. I mean, she's almost 18 years old by now, so she's almost an adult. It started off at age 9, and then she worked her way up to age 16, eventually becoming like a storyteller. And it's not really spelled that way. It's spelled like ST0RYT3LL Sriyar. I'm pretty sure that's how it's spelled. Needless to say, it's more of an abbreviation, and it's technically the same thing as YouTube, but in this case, you can just do anything you want, and this time you have ranks. Universe tier, which get millions of dollars per minute. Gold tiers, which don't get as much as the universe tiers, but at least get a good sum. And everything else. I mean, these are all of the best things that ever happened in this. I mean, heck, they even mention a cat. They even mention a cat in the book, which now is one of my favorite animals. Alright, okay, you can go. So what does this all have to do with spirits? Because its main character is a spirit. And as far as I'm concerned, this book really, it deserves a Newbery honor. I mean, for the past few videos, what we've talked about were Newbery winners of 2022. For the Newbery medal, it was The Last Quintista, one of my favorite books ever in sci-fi fiction. You know, I'm pretty sure all of you guys know how much I love sci-fi. Okay, I don't, but I'm just watching Star Trek now. And okay, the first Newbery honor winner, at least on the list that I read, was Too Bright to See. The second Newbery honor book of 2022 I read was written by Rajani Laroca, Red, White, and Whole. And by the way, if you're watching this on China, then you can actually access mine. Yeah, just I'll tell you eventually. For A Snake Falls to Earth, which this video is about, is the last and the third Newbery honor I'm reading. It's also the last Newbery winner book I'm reading from 2022. I'm still surprised about how all these authors got their stories grasped from either their childhoods or just something they just imagined and seen on news. For this, it's mainly childhood. It talks about someone who they love dearly die, in this case, the great-grandmother. For here, it's also based on childhood. It's also based, actually, the great-grandmother in real life for Darcie, Little Badger, was actually her dad, who never actually lived to see the first script. In Red, White, and Whole, Rajani LaRocca was inspired by a book that didn't only talk about being Indian while you're in America or being American while you're actually from India. It's about being both, even though you're in America. And this actually pretty grasped that idea well. For Too Bright to See, this is mainly talking about the news. For here, all of this seems to have been with more to the news. New York Times, CBN, NBC, those types of news stations really did cover these. Even National Geographic, who, at least according to the book, if I remember correctly, Hal Lugoff wrote about it. For Last Quintista, Miss Donna Barbara Hugra did one of the best 2022, to be honest, like the only 2022 sci-fi novel I've ever read. Book of all time. I mean, it also deals with being frozen and then living for another long time, but at least we will be here forever. Last Quintista. Kyle Lugoff's Too Bright to See, Red, White, and Whole, and A Snake Falls to Earth are all the best. I may have talked too much about the other books, so back to the point. This is the best fantasy novel I've ever enjoyed. I never really liked fantasy novels, especially my least favorite, actually my worst fantasy novel I've ever read, in my opinion, is really the children's version of Alice in Wonderland. Eventually, I'm anxious to read the real version. Maybe it would be better that way. But this is my top number one 2022 fantasy novel. But it's not my top number one favorite book at all in 2022, so I'm not telling you which one because I haven't decided yet. So, if you get the chance to buy A Snake Falls to Earth book and get the chance to read it or just borrow from your library, then read it and find out the world of gods and spirits and other external powers. Hope to see you guys in the next episode. From then out, peace and spirit out.